Every morning at exactly 6:47, the elevator doors open, and she is already there. Same gray coat, same neat scarf, same hair pinned back so tightly that not a single strand dares to move. She stands in the back left corner of the cabin, hands folded in front of her, and when our eyes meet, she smiles with the same careful curve of her lips and says, in the same soft tone, "Good morning." It never used to bother me. At first, it was even comforting. In a building where most people avoided eye contact and pretended headphones made them deaf and blind, she was the one constant. I'd step into the elevator, half awake, my tie crooked, my coffee still cooling in the travel mug, and there she'd be. Polite, predictable, almost mechanical. "Good morning," she'd say. "Morning," I'd mumble back. The doors would slide shut. 3 seconds of silence. The ding of the lobby. Then we would go our separate ways into the gray smear of our routine lives. If you ride in the same elevator with someone every day at the same time, you start to notice things. A subtle perfume, a faint floral trace that lingered for a few seconds after she stepped out. The way she always looked straight ahead at the doors, never at the mirrors, like her own reflection annoyed her. The way her smile never quite reached her eyes. I remember thinking she looked tired. Not in the way people look tired from work or lack of sleep, but tired in the bones. Like holding her own shape in place required more effort than it should. For weeks, her existence slotted neatly into my schedule. Alarm at 6:20. Shower, dress, coffee. Out the door at 6:44. Press the button. Elevator opens at 6:47. She's already inside, in the same spot, wearing the same expression. It was only after I'd seen her for almost 3 months that I realized I had no idea what apartment she lived in. I'd never watched which floor she got off on. She was always already there by the time I got in, and I always rode down to the lobby. I told myself she must live above me somewhere. 4th floor, maybe 5th. I never saw her in the hallways, never outside the building, never at the mailboxes. In my mind, she became the woman from upstairs, a background character in my life, a human screensaver. All of that would have stayed harmless, if not for one stupid, small coincidence. About a month ago, I came home later than usual. The city had turned strange with early winter dusk, and the lobby was lit with that sickly yellow that makes everyone look a little dead. On my way in, I saw a laminated sign taped to the button panel by the elevator. Notice, due to ongoing repairs, access to the 3rd floor is restricted. All residents have been relocated. Please do not exit on 3. I blinked at it, surprised. I rarely thought about the 3rd floor at all. My own apartment was on the 6th. I barely knew anyone in the building, much less who lived where. The elevator arrived with a ding. I stepped inside and, without thinking, glanced at the floor buttons. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3 was dark, covered by a rough piece of tape. Someone had scratched at the edges, as if trying to peel it off, but the tape held. For some reason, a stupid question crawled into my mind. If the 3rd floor was closed off, where did she live? I told myself she must be from higher up, maybe the 7th floor. Maybe she just never got off before me. That's all. I pressed 6 and rode up in silence. That night, I lay in bed longer than usual, listening to the old pipes hiss in the walls, thinking about that taped-up button. About her. The next morning, as always, I stepped out of my apartment at 6:44. Same fluorescent flicker in the hallway. Same worn gray carpet. Same faint smell of dust and cabbage that seems to cling to all old buildings. I pressed the elevator button. It took longer than usual. The numbers above the door were dead, but I heard the machinery humming somewhere in the shaft. A low, slow grind. The cables sighing. Then, finally, the soft chime. The door slid open. She was there, exactly where she always was. Back left corner, hands folded, gray coat, dark scarf. Her smile was ready, like it had been waiting for me. "Good morning," she said. "Morning," I replied automatically, stepping in. I pressed 1. She didn't press anything. She never did. That should have bothered me, but the habit of seeing her had sunk into my bones. The elevator started to descend. The cabin always smelled like a mix of metal and cleaning fluid. Today, though, there was another note beneath it. Something faintly sweet and stale, like old flowers left too long in a warm room. I glanced at her out of the corner of my eye. "Do you live on 7? I asked. The question surprised even me. It slipped out, riding on the back of my curiosity from the night before. I hadn't planned to say anything. She didn't answer. She just kept looking straight ahead, lips faintly curved, as if she hadn't heard me at all. The elevator stopped at the lobby. The doors opened. She stepped out first, her shoes making no sound on the floor. I followed her out, but by the time I blinked, she was already gone, vanished into the quiet building like she'd melted into the walls. All day at work, I found myself replaying that elevator ride. Her silence, her perfume, the fact that she never pressed a button. That evening, coming home exhausted and half-frozen, I remembered the notice about the third floor again. I remembered that weird gap in the button panel. Something gnawed at me. I stopped at the front desk where the concierge sat, half watching a tiny television. "Hey," I said. "Quick question. That third floor, is it really completely closed?" He looked up. He was an older man, with thinning hair and gray bags under his eyes. He'd worked there as long as I'd lived in the building. Somehow, I'd never even bothered to learn his name. "Third floor," he repeated. "Yes, closed for renovation. For 6 months." I glanced toward the elevator. "So nobody lives there at all?" His eyes narrowed slightly. "Correct." "What?" "Nothing. Just..." I hesitated, then pushed forward. "There's a woman I see every morning in the elevator. Gray coat, dark scarf. I always thought she was from the third floor." The blood drained from his face so fast I could see it happen. His hands, a moment ago resting lazily on the desk, curled into tight fists. His gaze shifted to the elevator, then back to me. "You see her?" he asked slowly. I laughed weakly. "Yeah, of course. Every morning at 6:47. We go down together." His mouth opened and closed like he was trying to speak, but the words wouldn't come. For a second, he just stared at me, and in that stare was something raw and naked. Fear. "What?" I asked, a cold weight starting to settle in my stomach. "What is it?" He swallowed. "Describe her." So I did. Gray coat, hairpin back, small, polite smile. The way she stood in the corner. The time. Always 6:47 a.m. When I finished, the concierge dragged a trembling hand down his face. "Her name was Marina," he whispered. "She lived on the third floor. 304. Lived," I repeated. Past tense. He nodded. "She died in the elevator. 1 year ago." A chill wrapped around my spine, squeezing. "How?" I managed. His eyes drifted to the elevator doors. "Heart attack. Early morning. No one else was around. She was coming down for work. I was on a break. Cameras showed the doors opening at 6:47. She stepped in, smiled. The doors closed. When they opened again at the lobby, she was on the floor. Gone." I swallowed, throat tight and dry. "But you said the third floor's been closed for 6 months." "Yes." "So no one lives there now?" "No one," he repeated firmly. I checked her out myself. The apartment has stayed empty. We taped off the elevator button to stop kids from wandering up there. There is no one on the third floor. The lobby felt suddenly colder. The hum of the lights overhead sounded louder. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. "Maybe someone knew," I began. "No," he cut in harshly. "I would know. I see every contract, every key. And she..." He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "You're not the first tenant to ask about her." My skin crawled. "What do you mean?" "Sometimes," he said slowly, "people say they see a woman in the elevator early in the morning. Always the same time. Always the same description. They think she's new. They ask. And then..." He stopped. "And then what?" I demanded. His eyes met mine. They were full of something I had no interest in naming. "They stop asking," he said simply. That night, I told myself it was a twisted joke. An old man's attempt to scare a bored tenant. Maybe he'd been waiting years to use that story on someone. Maybe he enjoyed the way the color had drained from my face. I tried to go to bed with that explanation wrapped around me like a blanket. It didn't help. The clock's red digits were brighter than usual. 1:12, 2:03, 3:26. Time crawled. Every creak of the building made me flinch. At 6:40, my alarm went off. My hand hovered over the button for a moment before I shut it off. The room felt wrong. Too still. My own breathing sounded too loud. I dressed slower than usual, my movements clumsy. Twice I had to redo my tie. My fingers wouldn't cooperate. The mirror showed me a pale face, eyes shadowed with lack of sleep. In the hallway, the fluorescent light flickered once, then steadied. The carpet muffled my footsteps as I approached the elevator, fingers damp against the cool metal button. 6:46, the phone in my pocket told me. I thought about taking the stairs. My finger was already pressing the button. The low rumble of the machinery started up, echoing faintly through the shaft. A mechanical heartbeat growing louder. My stomach clenched. The doors slid open with a soft sigh. She was there. Same gray coat. Same dark scarf. Same pinback hair. Same polite smile, carved onto her face like it had been drawn there with a knife. But now, knowing what I knew, I noticed more. A faint bluish tint to her skin. Shadows under her eyes that weren't from lack of sleep, but from something deeper. The way her chest didn't move. At all. "Good morning," she said. Same tone. Same inflection. Every syllable placed exactly where it had always been, as if she were reading from a script. My throat closed. I stepped into the elevator because my body moved on the rails of habit, not because I wanted to. The door sealed us in with a metallic click that felt far too final. I pressed one. My fingertip left a sweat smear on the button. We began to descend. For a few seconds, the world shrank to the hum of the cables and the soft whine of old machinery. I stared straight ahead, refusing to look at her reflection in the mirrored wall. "Excuse me," I said finally, forcing the words out past a dry tongue. "Did you used to live on the 3rd floor?" The question hung in the air between us like a noose. She turned her head toward me, slowly, like the motion cost her. Up close, her eyes were wrong. Not cloudy, not fully bright either. Like glass marbles pressed over something that didn't want to be seen. She smiled. Not wider, not different. Just the same smile she'd always given. But now, it felt like a mask. "I did," she said. My heart skipped once, then started pounding so hard it shook my ribs. "But the 3rd floor is closed." "Yes," she said calmly. "How can you still?" Finally, she cut in, her voice still soft but carrying a weight that made the tiny cabin feel even smaller. "Finally, you asked." The elevator shuddered. We were between floors now. I knew by the way my ears popped, by the way the cabin seemed to hover instead of glide. "I've been waiting," she said. Her smile didn't change, but the light in her eyes flickered. For the first time, it looked like there was something behind them. "Waiting for what?" I whispered. "For this," she replied. "For you to notice. For you to care enough to say something. My turn is finished. Tomorrow, it will be yours." The words were wrong. All wrong. Delivered in the same pleasant tone she'd always used for good morning, but thick with something ancient and cold. The elevator jerked again. The lights flickered. "What do you mean, my turn?" My voice cracked. Her head tilted, almost sympathetically. "Every day," she said. 6:47. Doors open. I smile. I say the words. I relive the last morning of my life, over and over, until someone sees me. Not just looks. Sees. She leaned in just enough that I could smell it, the sickly sweet undertone of decay beneath the floral perfume. "You saw me," she whispered. "You asked." And now, her gaze dropped to my hand, white-knuckled on the rail. "Now I can rest," she said, "and someone has to take my place." I slammed my palm against the button panel. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. The emergency button. The doors open button. Every circle of plastic I could reach. Nothing happened. The cabin hung suspended in the shaft, humming quietly, like it was listening. Her smile softened. For a brief moment, she looked almost human again, almost tired. "Don't be afraid," she said. "It will be the same. You will stand where I stand. You will say the words. You will wait for someone to notice you." "I don't want this," I choked. "Neither did I," she said simply. The elevator lurched. The numbers above the door flickered once, then came to life. 3. The doors slid open with a rusty groan. The 3rd floor hallway stretched out in front of us, dim and dusty. Bare concrete. Exposed wires. Doors covered in plastic sheeting. The air smelled stale and cold, like a place no one had breathed in for a very long time. "This is your stop," she said. I shook my head, backing away, pressing myself against the mirrored wall. My reflection looked wild-eyed, pale, almost as ghostly as she did. "I'm not getting out," I said. Her smile widened by a fraction. "You don't have to," she said. "Not today." She stepped forward. For the first time, her shoes made a sound on the floor. A soft, dragging scrape. She leaned close enough that her lips were almost at my ear. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "you will die in this elevator at 6:47 a.m. The words crawled into me like ice water. Then she stepped back into the hallway. Just before the doors closed, she looked at me one last time. "Good morning," she said, in that same familiar tone. The door slid shut. The elevator jolted, then resumed its descent. My knees sagged with the movement, and I realized only then how badly I was shaking. When the doors opened onto the lobby, the concierge was already standing there, eyes wide, face ashen. He must have been watching the numbers above the door. He took one look at me and knew. "You saw her," he said. I nodded, unable to speak. "What did she say?" he whispered. I swallowed hard. My tongue felt too big, my mouth too dry. She said, "I managed, that her turn is over. And tomorrow is mine." He closed his eyes. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "I didn't go to work that day. I didn't go anywhere." I took the stairs back up to my apartment, heart pounding with every step, and locked the door behind me. The day stretched out, thin and fragile. Every sound made me flinch. Every creak of the building felt like a countdown. Night came. I didn't sleep. Now it's 6:40 again. The elevator waits at the other end of the hallway, beyond the thin barrier of my door. I can hear the soft vibration of its machinery through the walls, like a distant, mechanical heartbeat. In 7 minutes, the doors will open. I know what will happen. I can see it too clearly. I will step inside. I will see my reflection in the mirror, white and tight-lipped. The elevator will descend. Somewhere between 6 and 1, my heart will seize. My body will crumple to the floor. The doors will open to the lobby. And tomorrow, at 6:47, someone else will press the button. The doors will slide open. They will see me standing in the back left corner. I will smile. "Good morning," I will say, and I will wait for them to finally ask.